Great to be here.
Yes. This is a whole bunch of people from our curriculum committee, institutional effectiveness, program review, student learning outcomes, data governance. Who else? Cover pretty much representation-wise, pretty much all. So yeah, so we've got a large various different things. Going to encourage. This is, again, the idea behind this. This is a product that we do not have currently. The hope is that if we decided that this was something that would suit our needs, that it might be able to replace both TrackNet in terms of the SLO and tracking and CurricuNet. And so that's why we wanted all of you to be able to be here, because we do want to give this a pretty good vetting today. Matt's the expert, so he's got a presentation, but I'm sure that we will invite questions and inquiry as we go along. Or would you rather have questions as you're going, or would you rather have them holding?
Oh, definitely. I'll stop and you ask questions along the way. I want this to be about your questions, not about my presentation.
Okay, really? We'll just put it over to you.
So can you guys hear this?
Yeah, I can. It's good.
Okay. The one thing I want to make sure this is teed up. Okay. So, I feel like I'm a comedian now on stage. So hopefully your time is well spent in the 3 hours that we have here together. I don't have much time. Who here believes that curriculum has anything to do with student success? Really, or just because the guy next to you raised his hand? All right, so how many of you, be honest, feel like assessment of SLOs that are in your curriculum system have anything to do, that there's any correlation to student success? Do you feel like assessment leads to student success? Yes or no? Yes? No? Okay. And those that don't feel like it leads to student success is basically because, in my opinion, the process is not intertwined enough so that there's any connection between what you're doing as faculty members and what ultimately the student cares about and where they're headed. So real quick, just a little background on me. Again, my name is Matt Coombs. I have been in higher ed since I graduated as an instructional technologist in 1995, just a few years ago. And since then, I've worked for Apple Computer, worked for the U.S. Air Force, worked for a company called Campus Pipeline, got acquired by SCT, that became SunGard Higher Ed, that became Elucian. I was a product manager there for their ed planning and degree audit system, as well as a few other products, the portal product. And I got tired of building software that was not integrated together. So I went to San Joaquin Delta as the director of IT there in 2007, about. And they were involved in an open source project called Kowali. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Kowali, but it was institutions trying to build an ERP, what you call DataTel or Colleague. I was there for 6 years, left San Joaquin Delta, and then worked at Hartnell College for another 5. And then I was poached from there by eLumen, because we were in very much the same situation that you are in, but much worse shape. We were about to have an accreditation visit. In our case, our faculty had not been doing their assessments, and we knew we were going to get dinged. So we wanted to at least have a system in place so that after the visit, we could say, here's the way we're going to have sustainable process to show that we're doing assessment. We got 11 recommendations after the visit. And if you guys don't know, that's bad. 11's bad. That's pretty close to the show cause. And most of them were around academic performance and the assessment and sustainability and institutional effectiveness. Few were around our relationship with our boards, some were our business practices. Mostly it was academics. So in the process of working with eLumen, within 6 months of being on eLumen, we erased all, well, 9 of the 11 recommendations. That's unheard of. And it was because eLumen helped us put in place sustainable, meaningful process. And I was so impressed with that I gave up building a thing that I was building that was student-focused, that would show students why they're still in school to help them stay in school. So what's the progress they're making, not just in their credits and progress towards their degree, but how do we make sure they know the skills that they are picking up along the way so that if they had to leave tomorrow to go get a job, they knew what those skills were. And if they would finish their certificate or finish their degree, not only would they increase what they could earn, but they increase their chance of getting a job. So I was building that with my meager IT staff, and I essentially handed that over to my apprentice, the guy who took my place, and I went and rebuilt it at eLumen. So I know what it's like to sit on the SLO committee. I know what it's like to be on the curriculum committee. I know what it's like to be in the academic senate committee meetings and be frustrated with processes that don't seem to be making much difference. And I know what it's like to have a chancellor's office changing initiatives on you once every 3 years. I know what it's like, which is why we tried to, with eLumen, to build a system that pulls it all together for you so that as the tides change, you're able just to continue to march forward and help your faculty do meaningful stuff, not stuff that they feel is a waste of time. So with that, I'm going to show you a quick, and I'm just going to walk you through of what eLumen is doing, and it will involve our integration with Canvas as well. So eLumen is made up of 3 primary pieces. The first piece is the assessment and program review piece. So that is one solution. As you do assessment, you don't just fill out templates and then have those templates stored on a server someplace. You're actually entering in data into eLumen, and that data can then drive reports and feed into your program review automatically. So you don't have to re-enter stuff that you've already entered in as part of your assessment. That's one module. Second module, and that, by the way, that assessment module is focused primarily on faculty. How do we make the job easier for faculty so they can get information back that only they can see? The dean can't see it, the president can't see it, the SLOAC committee can't see it. It's data that only the faculty get to see. How is my assessment practice giving me information that helps me teach these students better? The second module is curriculum. So we honestly don't believe that you should have those 2 as separate systems. As you update your SLOs as part of your curriculum evolution, and you need to do that every 2 years for CT course and 5 years or 6 years for normal course, as those are evolved, we want to make sure if you make changes in curriculum, it's already updated in your assessment system. They're not 2 separate systems. It's the same database, same information. And I can tell you that it's a world better than the existing system you have under contract here at the institution. I know that because I managed it at both Delta and at Hartnell. I used the system, I paired and fed CurricuNet at my 2 previous institutions. So I know what it's like to support it, I know what it's like to use it. And I made sure we built one over the last 3.5 years that was tremendously better. And I think that you'll agree when you see it. The third is what you're about to see here, which is what the students get to see when faculty do the thing that they have to do, because if they don't, they get in trouble. But what I hope happens is that faculty start to do this because they love the information that's coming at them, and they know that it'll have a direct impact on the happiness and success of students. But with the first two modules, it'll take you a number of months or years just to kind of get a rhythm on it, where you don't have to worry about the piece you're going to see right now. But I just want you to know that it exists because it just helps you see the vision of what eLumen's trying to make possible for the California Community College market. We have 48 of the 114. We think that we'll be at about 68 by end of summer. And we hope that we're at 80 by this time next year. Because we're helping the California Community College system do what frankly has been perceived as being impossible before we brought it all together. So, any questions before I continue? Okay, you guys look like you're still awake, that's good. All right, so Abigail Bauer has just logged into the system, and she has clicked on one of the tabs up top, which shows that she doesn't have any badges, anything that she's earned. So I'm now just switched gears. I'm now coming in as a faculty member, and I'm inside of eLumen, and the only thing that I have to do, the first step, is I have to, so this is something that, this is part of our core, that first solution is that you can tap any SLO that you have in your system, and you can connect it to a visualization of accomplishment of that SLO, which we call a badge. And we support Badger, which is the solution that the Chancellor's Office and the Foundation's already chosen as a standard. Not that everyone has to follow that, but they've got a contract with them from a company called Concentric Sky. It's an open source badging platform based off the Mozilla standard. So you can use Badger badges, or you can actually create your own. But once you have a badge and you've connected it to a set of SLOs, then those badges, as you do assessment, automatically appear in the student view. So no student services have to do any additional work for them to see the proof of those CSLOs having been mastered or accomplished by a student. Let me make this a little bigger. That's a little better. So this is eLumen, and inside of eLumen, again, the core module, the very first assessment and program review module, we store all of your SLOs. And what's happening here is that from those list of SLOs, we can synchronize these SLOs to your Canvas instance. So it's the easy button. You just click synchronize, and it sends all the SLOs over to the LMS. So that's what this, it says CSLO synchronization at the top there. This is now sending it to Canvas. The green bar at the lower right shows that that has successfully happened. So then I'm able to go into Canvas. This is the Canvas user interface. I'm able to go into one of my outcomes areas, go find the eLumen SLOs that have been moved over, find the course that has been synchronized, and literally start to build my rubric inside of Canvas using the SLOs that exist inside of eLumen. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, for those that may not understand how cool that is, because I mean, you guys should be giving a standing ovation right now. The reason why this is so cool is, if you're a faculty member and you want to use Canvas, and you want to use the Canvas outcomes tools, which are great tools, they don't do anywhere near as much or as deep as what eLumen does, But frankly, most faculty just need simple stuff. And so if you, in order to use the Canvas outcomes tools, what needs to exist inside of Canvas to then do assessment? Starts with an S and ends with an O. So you have to hand enter the SLOs into Canvas without this synchronization. And what happens typically if you're hand entering stuff into a computer application? It's not always accurate, right? You copy the wrong SLO or maybe the wrong version of the SLO. And when that's now synchronized from eLumen, it's only going to grab the approved current version of the SLO that the SLOAC committee or that the curriculum committee has approved in the last cycle of curricular evolution. So in other words, you have perfect synchronicity between your LMS and your, frankly, your SLO system of record. The other problem you have with an LMS is if you are a faculty member and you're trying to assess, having the tools to assess, are you assessing a course or are you assessing a program? You guys know the answer to this.
You're doing both.
Well, you're directly, you only have the ability to look at inside of an LMS, you only have the ability to see a course. Canvas, you're right.
Right, but if you're going to assess, you're going to end up assessing both for the course and for your program as a whole.
Correct. But the tools that Canvas provides you only allows you, so you can bring over a PSLO, program SLO or an ISLO, but you are doing it inside the confines of an assignment inside of a course, an offering of a course. That's what LMSs were built to do, whether it's Blackboard or D2L or Canvas or Moodle or Sakai or whatever. Those tools are focused on delivering a course. And so none of the reports that exist in those systems allow you to do program level assessment or program level reports. Like what was the learning arc of all my students across the entire program? You can't do that inside of Canvas. And again, I'm not trying to rain on Canvas's parade. We meet with them about every 3 weeks. They are our #1 partner, and we are theirs because of what we're able to help them do. Yes. Yep, I'm going to show that this next. So, but what I'm trying to help people understand is that Canvas by itself is not going to solve your problem because your accreditation visit is going to ask, how are you evolving on a sustainable, regular process your programs? And so you need to show that you have an arc of learning across your programs. You've got an increase of success in your programs, increase of completion in your programs. And that data cannot be pulled without a whole bunch of work out of your LMS. But Canvas integrated with eLumen solves that problem for you. All right, so I've built my rubric. I pull in my SLOs. I'm now going to go over to SpeedGrader, and I'm going to assess this midterm assessment based on the rubric that I've just, well, I'm going to build it here and pull that SLO over. So I find my outcome, I bring that outcome over. It may bring in another outcome as part of this rubric. And then I'm ready to assess. So I go to SpeedGrader. The outcome that I'm about to assess came originally from eLumen, but now it's appearing here with inside of a Canvas rubric. I score that student very quickly, click, click, click. And then based on the scores that I've given, so I'm doing E and ALSA, if you look up in the upper right-hand corner. And now I'm going to do Abigail Bauer, who is that first student I showed in the first screen of this video. And I'm going to assess her. She just rocked it. She got 4s across the board. Hit save. And then for the sake of this demo, I'm just going to leave Canvas. I'm going to go back into eLumen as Abigail Bauer. Oh, this is your round trip. So as you come back into eLumen, and you can see that I'm now importing the scores back from Canvas. So even though I've done my assessment in Canvas, I'm pulling the scores in SpeedGrader into eLumen so that eLumen can give you that program view and reports, right? So I pushed SLOs over, scored in Canvas, and I'm pushing the scores from SpeedGrader over to eLumen. And all I need to do is click once, close the window, and I'm done. It's that easy. It doesn't have to be the faculty members that do this. This could be faculty support, but you can see that it's fairly easy. Won't take much time for faculty to do this work. And again, what it sets up is, now I'm looking at eLumen, and I'm looking at the assessment with the same SLOs, and guess what's already in eLumen? It's the scores that are identical to the scores that are in the SpeedGrader in the LMS. So even though assessment happened in a completely different application, eLumen has the same record, the same scores, the same results, all within in eLumen. So now when I log in, not only do I see my career progress, I see the courses have been approved, I go over to my badges, and like magic, she now has 2 badges that show her progress towards her degree, right? So I won't make you continue to watch that video, but is there any questions about what you just seen? There is no other system on the face of the earth that can show you what I just showed you in one application. There's no one that can make it as easy for your faculty, and there's definitely no one that can do it as cheap as we can do it for you. So go ahead. It's a great question. Canvas, or an Instructure, the company that makes Canvas, just announced they've dropped their badging platform. So they don't want to manage badges. They want us to manage them for them.
Who initially puts in the SLO into eLumen?
It's a great question. So right now your SLOs exist within Curriculum, right? And let's say that you don't completely hate what you've seen today, and you think, hey, this might be interesting to move forward with. And one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to work with your staff to get an export out of Curriculum, as well as an export out of your colleague, right? Your Banner? Banner. Sorry about that. I won't make that mistake twice. So we'll get Banner data and we'll get Curriculum data, and we're going to import that in. Why do we want that information? We want your SIS information because Banner is going to tell us who taught what to whom when, and what were their demographics. How many were male versus female? How many were veteran? How many were first generation? How many were, right? All that demographic information will come into eLumen so that when you assess, whether it's collectively or per student, we can spit back at you 1B6 data. When I say 1B6, you guys know what I'm talking about? The accreditation standard 1B6. And we want your Curriculum data because it tells us what courses are active, what the prerequisites are, what the co-requisites are, what are the CB codes, so that we can help you upload that into the COKI and be compliant with the Chancellor's Office. But critically, part of that upload will be all your SLOs. So it will automatically feed into eLumen. You won't have to hand enter those because they'll come in with that upload. Any other questions? Okay. So I'm going to go into real quickly. This is what eLumen looks like for a faculty member. Up top, it identifies me as Mariana Padilla. I'm a faculty member in mathematics. I have an inbox, which I'll go into in a second. I can reset my password. I can click on at any time. Oh, great, that's not what I wanted to have happen. But at any time, normally you'd be able to actually click into our knowledge base. You'd be able to communicate with a dedicated customer success person that you'll know the name of. You may even know their cell phone number, but it's a person who's that is assigned to Barstow and will stick with Barstow for months or years to come. Besides that, you're able to get into our knowledge base, and if for some reason you wanted to make a recommendation for us to build something, then you come in and make a recommendation. So that's all underneath that question mark. It's erroring out because I'm in the Matt Coombs version of that somewhere else, and it doesn't want me to log in twice. So on top of that, you can see that I've got multiple tabs. I've got courses, I've got SLO and assessments, curriculum, I've got a results explorer, which is really cool. I'll show you that in a second. And then strategic initiatives. Strategic initiatives is a fancy word inside of eLumen to mean program review. The reason why we call it strategic initiatives is because program review is just one initiative. You actually might do a department improvement plan. You might want to do a course improvement plan. You might want to do an action plan. All of those use the same tools that glean information from the SLO portion of eLumen. So it's essentially reuse, same tools, so you're not having to learn new tools, all under the same login for assessment. So you're used to going into TrackDat to do your assessment, and then you're going to fire up another tool called CurriculNet to do curriculum. Whereas in our system, you just click on the tab, and you're seeing all of the existing curriculum revisions for your department within a click. On top of that, you can click on the inbox, and it shows you, just like on your cell phone, shows you a notification that there's a workflow that you need to participate in, an action plan that you as a faculty member are asked to be responding to, and even a SurveyMonkey tool we call RFI. So when accreditation representatives ask, what are you using as a tool to make sure that you are getting faculty together to talk about how they're going to move programs forward? All you have to do is point to eLumen to say it's a collaborative application that brings people together through tools, and we have proof that that conversation happened, and then here's the change that we got approved and even funded, and here's the resource request, and here's the allocation, here was the voting process at the college planning council, and here's how it was funded, and then here's the evaluation whether the money did any good or not in the next program review, all within one system. All right, so I'll show you what that looks like. So first, I'm going to come back to this inbox in a second, so I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just going to go into one of my courses. So for a faculty member, whether you're doing collective scorings or you're doing per student, eLumen makes it really, really simple. We're going to set all of this page that you're seeing right now up for you. Where do you think we get this information right here that I just highlighted? Banner.
Oh.
Right, so we know who taught what, when, and we also know exactly who you taught it to, because we get that information from Banner. You don't have to do any of that. You don't have to build a roster, you don't have to build a course, you don't have to set up any of this. It's just automatically sitting there waiting for you to assess. In addition, we can help your team automatically send to every section, if you so choose, an assessment waiting to be assessed. So they don't have to think too hard about who to send things out to. It just automatically appears based on the fact that the section was actually taught. So now again, it doesn't have to be this way. You can set it up. We have a tool called the Planner, which says we only want to assess one course in our program once a year, and we want to do it collectively, and we want to do one SLO each of those years for the next 6 years. And it will then keep track of, you did the SLO 1 this year, SLO 2 this year, SLO 3 this year. But frankly, I think it's just way too much thinking rather than just sending it out automatically to every section, but that's just me. If you go into what this looks like, this shows you, and again, this is a per student assessment, but we could just as easily have done a collective assessment. This shows you all the students that attended the course. Again, you didn't have to set this up, it's just waiting for you. And if you were to be honest, I know you guys all are, if you're going to do a collective assessment, and there was 35 students that you're assessing in that collective assessment, and you had to determine 30 out of 35 students met expectations, you have to think about 30 individual students to get to a number of 30, right? So frankly, you're already doing individualized assessment, you're just reporting it in a collective sense in some cases. And again, we're happy to facilitate that, but if you're already thinking about it, your ability to actually come through and assess each student on what they did based on the number of evidences you have, whether that's quiz, paper, project, report, allows you to come through and assess the students. And when you're done, you're done. And at the very end of this, at the bottom of all the students, this could probably take you 15 minutes at the longest, maybe 25, and you're done. And you can save and you can continue on to a reflection. And a reflection is something you don't have to use in eLumen, but it's a way for an individual instructor to say, here was my experience teaching this course this semester with these students. There was horrible construction going on, we couldn't hear anything that impacted, or love the new iPads that really helped, or whatever, right? Whatever questions you want to put in this template, that's up to you to design a reflection template. And if you do distribute it as part of an assessment, you now have this evidence that you can show your public, your program, other faculty, or ACCJC that you are thinking about this process. It's becoming more meaningful. Any questions about that? Okay, you can submit and share with your name on it, or you could, this is just a feature you can turn on or off, or you can actually share it anonymously. So you still get the input, but if you don't want to have to put your name on it, you don't have to. Again, it's something you would turn on or off depending on what the culture is here. Now, as a faculty member, I want to be able to see immediately as I assess my courses, what are the results? What is this telling me about my students? What's it teaching me about my pedagogy? And guess who gets to see this? Just the faculty. This report doesn't get to be seen by anyone in the system. Even there's a role within our system which is called the data steward, and it's akin to being the god or goddess of eLumen. They can do anything they want in the system, and they cannot see this data. The president cannot see this data. The dean cannot see this data. Your VPI cannot see this data. It's protected because it's your data of how your course, your sections were assessed. We protect the privacy of faculty. Now, this data becomes aggregated at a course level, and then it's shared, in reports, but it's done at an aggregated level, not at a section level. And you can do a couple things here. First, you can compare your sections to other sections overall. So in this, you can see that these are multiple SLOs. The dotted line is how other sections of this course performed. And I know that at Barstow, you probably have many situations where you've got only one section of a course. But if you have comparative sections, you can see how your section did either better or worse than some of the other sections. And then you can also look at this information in table view. So it shows you whether you performed better than the last time it was taught or worse. And then maybe what were the factors? Was it that you had a horrible flu come through the campus? Was it there was some other, world disaster that distracted people? Was it the fact that you lost a couple key faculty? The data is now here. You don't have to contact institutional research, have them do a whole bunch of work that you have to wait 3 months for to then make decisions about whether you evolve your pedagogy. You see the power in this so far? Okay, you guys are a little less lively than I would hope, but I'm hoping you're still with me. Okay, and here's all those faculty reflections. You get to see whether it's someone that's responded anonymously or has responded with their name on it. You get to see how other faculty felt about this semester teaching this course. So you can see if you had similar perspectives. How does that help then contribute to an action plan later or a program review where you're getting all the faculty of the discipline together and you're starting to talk about how you can meaningfully move the program forward? You've got all of this great information that they did as they finished a course. All right? All right, so that's kind of the experience of how to assess. Let me show you how easy it is to create an assessment. You click on Add Assessment, and I'm going to do a collective score just so you can see what that looks like. I'm just going to put in test data. So I'm going to name the assessment. I'm going to put a description of that assessment. I'm going to choose an assessment type. This list is one that you come up with when you deploy the software. You can allow faculty to communicate with each other. If you've got co-evaluators with the course, they can communicate through eLumen about the assessment process. You can even identify the specific, maybe it was a quiz, as a way of doing the assessment. You can have a decimal scale, or you can have a rating scale of 0 to 4, met, not met. You determine these because you can create as many scales as you want. And the way that we built the system, doesn't matter if you are all using 1,500 different scales, we can, in our reports, align that data so that it all fits nicely into a single report and the apples are compared to apples. It doesn't take the freedom away from the faculty to assess the way they want to assess, but it still gives the institution the reports it needs to know whether instruction is being effective. So I'm just going to choose a 0 through 4 scale. I can choose different types of rubrics. In this case, I'm just going to stick with outcomes oriented. I'm going to choose 2 criteria. I'm going to generate my template. And here is my template. I'm going to link it to an SLO. And this is where it gets really cool. It knows that I'm building this assessment for Math 100. So what SLOs is it pulling up? I don't have to go hunting for them. It just already knows that these are the SLOs that belong to Math 100. So I just choose that I'm going to assess SLO 1 and SLO 5. I could, if I wanted to, bring in my PSLOs or ISLOs. Let's say I was going to do a communication, I could add that as well. And I'm going to save. And if I save it and it's just mine, then only I get to use this assessment. Or if I save it and share it to a library of assessments, then anyone else teaching this course can use my assessment. It's kind of like sharing the love, right? All right, so now if I go in to look at that assessment that I've created, here's my collective scores. Over here, because we've got this information from Banner, it knows there's 35 students in this course, and I can put in that 30 met, and see it's already counting for me on the right-hand side. I don't even have to do math. And I can say that 3 got a 3. And that leaves 2 more for me to say did not meet. And if for some reason a couple students dropped, I can actually put them in the NA so that it doesn't ding me for people that weren't even there.
Okay, so I have a question for you. You have an assignment that you're using to assess that SLO, and it goes through the grading process, and this is in Canvas, correct? So why wouldn't it automatically then, if they talk to each other, why isn't it automatically saying what meets those expectations, what exceeds, it meets, and doesn't? So that you're not having to add it yourself, because again, you're talking about possible errors from copying it from over here to here. Why isn't it doing that for you?
Great question. Because I didn't go through Canvas to do the scoring in this case.
Okay.
For a couple of reasons. Not all faculty are going to use Canvas.
Oh, at our college, we're all using Canvas.
Awesome.
Or at least for online anyway. And I think my understanding is hybrid and also.
We actually have everybody who's teaching face-to-face on Canvas.
Pardon?
I don't think we have everybody who's teaching.
Well, not right
face-to-face.
this, but is that not something that we're looking at or no?
Possibly long term.
Okay, I'm just curious.
No,
Anyway,
it's-
okay, never mind then.
Yeah, no, so, but I'm gonna show you how you then set that up if you were going to do that, right? So just know that eLumen will allow you to set up a rubric and score right within eLumen if you prefer. But if it's an institutional decision next year or next semester, if everyone does assessment inside of Canvas, whether it's a hybrid, face-to-face, distance ed course, then what you would do is you would build the assessment, frankly, in eLumen first. This is one way you can do it. Once I have that assessment created, I can then send the outcomes over to Canvas. Why is that important? It's important because if I just said, hey, math department's going to assess SLO 1 and SLO 5, but everyone's using a different scale that are teaching the same section, that's kind of bad. Even though we allow you to have different scales, you want everyone within the same section to say all will be doing collective scores or all doing per student scores. So we want to build the assessment first, and then when we send the outcomes, guess what it already knows? It knows what courses are already waiting for it in Canvas to send it over to. So then you can choose, I'm going to send over the Math 100. I'm going to send these SLOs, that scale, and those descriptors over to Canvas, so you don't have to set that up in Canvas anymore. You just import those SLOs and those descriptors, they're now part of your SpeedGrader rubric. So just saved you a ton of time. Even though you're doing it in 2 places, it's work you have to do anyway. We've just made sure that it's accurate and that it is synchronized. All right, now, once I send those outcomes and I go over, maybe I didn't like that course. Once I'm in the Canvas environment, and I go into that section or that course, then here's where I sent it over. I can then go into my outcomes and find any outcome that may be there. I can either create them or I can find them. Here's my mathematics, and here's my Math 100, and here's my SLOs, and you can see here's my scale, my descriptors, and my SLO. And after I do my assessment, then I would come back to eLumen, and I would click on this little button right here, and it's importing scores back from Canvas into eLumen. And again, you can coordinate and have someone who's the eLumen person do the pulling back for faculty, but frankly, it's just not that much time to do. And you know when you want to make your scores in Canvas, you want to make them part of the public record. It's better that you just decide when that's going to happen, right before grading or end of semester or after you've gone home for the Christmas break or whatever it is. But that's how it works. And again, what our goal between Canvas and eLumen is that if you create an assessment like I did with that quiz, and I send it over, it's going to automatically build your rubric for you in SpeedGrader. That's where we're heading. But frankly, right now, the Canvas Application Programming Interface API, it's not strong enough to support what we're sending it. So that's why we're meeting on a regular basis with our development team, is we're trying to help them build a portion of what we've already got working. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, see how easy it was to score, see how easy it was to build an assessment, and see how easy it is to synchronize information over to Canvas. You're not going to get that from TrackNet, you're not going to get that from CricutNet, at least not in my lifetime. So this is working today. This is something that we have operational at institutions across this state and in other states like North Carolina system. All right, so that's kind of the assessment portion, and you saw how you can run the reports and see performance. What does that mean for program review? Program review, I come in, and look at any of the templates or program reviews that I've been asked to participate in. I click in, and I'm assuming you have at least 1 or 3 different templates, one for administration, one for academic, and one for non-academic, something like that. So this is an academic template where it's basically asking you to put in information which can be auto-fed from eLumen right into these. So you don't have to tell us that your program is math associates in science or an AST or a bachelor's. We already know that. We can auto-populate that field for you. And I'll show you what that looks like in a big way. So here's awards and time to completion. I can just click on generate data, and it brings that information from Banner and just fills that in for your program review. How about program fill retention and success rates? You can see that I've already pulled in that data, but just so you know that it's real, I then just click on generate, and it updates that information from the last time it was pulled. Right, so if nothing else, I want you to leave this presentation understanding that eLumen doesn't want you to enter in content that sits in a PDF on your website that then someone has to copy and paste and put into a program later. It's data inside the system, and that data can be reused over and over. You can do the same thing for changes in curriculum or your SLOs. So, sorry if this is making you, and there's pretty little widgets. We're never going to be Tableau. Do you guys use Tableau here? If you ever use it in the future, we never want to be Tableau. That's a whole nother ball of wax. But we can help with basic visualizations of your data.
So if you've already got community colleges in California, we don't have to build anything. You're going to import it for, say, intermediate algebra because everybody offers it. It's already built in your system. So we're not going to have to download any SLOs because you're going to use what you've collected throughout the state.
No,
No.
So the short answer to that is
Well,
no.
why not? That's my question.
Yeah,
Because if we're all teaching intermediate algebra, the outcomes should be the same.
no, because of academic freedom, Gene. Everybody has their own outcomes.
Yeah, so I had this conversation with Pat James, who was the executive director of OEI, and she said, don't ever do that. Over our dead body as faculty, would we ever want you to tell us what SLOs we want in our courses? So yes, we could do that. We could say, here's the CID for Math 100 course, and here's the COR, and here's the SLOs. It's auto ready-made Math 100. Problem is the demographics here in Barstow are completely different than Glendale. And Glendale is completely different than Siskiyou, and Siskiyou is completely different from West Valley. So your SLOs, based on your community need, frankly, need to be different. And not saying that we couldn't help with that, but we've been told stay out of our SLOs.
Well, it'll soon be coming.
What we can do, however, is that we can help with CTE programs to say, here are the competencies that we know from, do you guys know what EMSI data is? Mm-hmm. It's what feeds Launch Board. So we can bring MZ data into eLumen, and we can show someone who's, say, moving on trajectory for a certificate or a degree that leads to a job. We can tell them how many competencies they have mastered and whether they are job ready or not, based on the skills that MZ or Burning Glass or others are saying are the skills required to, say, be a welder or be a clean air technician or to be a nurse or an anesthetist or whatever. So the more we have hard skills, we can auto-populate those skills. We can have you import those, and those would become your SLOs. That make sense? And then we'll come here. Go ahead.
I was just following, so just for clarification for Gene on the question, while there is breath in my body, no, we won't import somebody else's SLOs. But you're not saying, you're saying that you would be importing SLOs not from externally, but from our existing course outlines of record in Curricunet.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. We would not do it on the state level. We would do it from your existing SLOs. Yeah, your SLO is going to be different from some other colleges.
So speaking of which, who manages the administration and that?
Some lucky person in this room. Or frankly, so how many people here from the curriculum committee? Okay, your job does not end with eLumen. You just get to do it inside of eLumen if you went this direction. How many of you are on the SLOAC? You do that inside of eLumen. How many of you are, is that?
Lisa's on everything. She's putting her hand up before you.
So what we're trying to do is take away the busy work. We're trying to make sure you're not having to do things 3 times. So you don't have to hire an army to run eLumen. I'll tell you right now that some of the schools that are already up and running on eLumen, College of the Siskiyous, Mendocino, Lake Tahoe, College of the Redwoods, Coalinga, Lemoore, Saracoso. You've ever been to Saracoso's campus? It's just down the street, an hour, but they have 3 buildings, and I think about 2,500 FTS. They're running everything except for the student module, and they only have part-time faculty that are administrative. eLumen not to be difficult to run, but the more you dedicate time to eLumen, it pays off in spades for curriculum, for assessment, and if it matters, accreditation. But something tells me that matters at least for the next month. Okay, one other thing I want to show you before I leave this. This is course student learning outcome data. So, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Typically, how long does it take the faculty to learn the eLumen?
Which semester?
The fall semester.
Well, I asked the question kind of facetiously because, so unlike any other vendor, so I don't know if you've ever had to procure software, but that's what I did for 10 years when I had my jobs at Delta and at Hartnell, is I would essentially buy software for faculty or buy software for administrators. And almost always you would buy the software, then you would buy a services package, and then you would buy training. And then you have a bucket of training hours, and when you're done with that bucket, you have to refill the bucket. But guess what you don't have when you have to refill the bucket? You don't have any budget. Because you only get budget typically one time in forever. Like if you have SSSP money, that money will go away. If you have strong workforce money, that money will go away. So eLumen is a product in which you license, essentially you pay every year as a service, but for what you pay us for, we give you essentially unlimited training because of one important factor. You as faculty will not remember what you did 4 months ago.
Amen. I don't remember what I did last week.
Now, I know that I look 25, but I'm actually 52. I can't remember what I did last week. So eLumen, as easy as it is, you won't remember how you did it exactly and what you clicked on. And we have videos in our knowledge base. We have step 1, 2, 3 guides. We make it pretty simple, but we essentially will give you a dedicated customer service manager that will provide training for you remotely, in most cases, like going through a conference call, but you will see the screen and you will follow along in a lab and you will click, and there is no limit to the number of times you can ask for that training. Okay, and if it's special training, if you want us to come in and do, say, change your culture of assessment and do more consulting, we'd be happy to take more money from you. But for just getting the job done, that is part of the eLumen promise. Answer your question?
Thank you.
By the way, I paid him to ask that question. So anyway, you hit generate data, and it pulls in all of your CSLO data. You don't have to have expected and actual performance. You determine what these columns are. But I think I've made my point. is that you can just pull in data automatically into eLumen with a click of a button. That's program review. And what's cool about this is that you can, even though I'm not an admin, but normally if I was an admin, I could add people who, I could see who gets to be the collaborators of this section alone. So you could say, hey, these faculty get this section, and these faculty get this section, and this CSC employee gets this section. You can delineate through your program reviews and workflow of program reviews who gets to do what. So you can share again the burden of filling out a program review. Okay, now I'm going to go to curriculum. Any other questions around program review or around assessment before I leave them behind? Okay. Is there anything that you haven't seen?
So what is, yes, I have a question. So this is because it's mathematics, so it's more about instruction. What does the program review look like for non-instruction areas?
Like say the Learning Resources Center or
Right.
the Math Lab
Right.
or
Where would that be?
So-
where would you click to get to that?
It's a great question. So let me just show you if I'll come back. So if I come in as TiVo, I'm doing this with one hand, so. So I can be a faculty member in computer science, but I'm also the manager or employee over the resource center. So it's the same user interface. And instead of doing SLOs, you're going to do SAOs or AAOs or whatever you're going to call it. So you don't have to relearn different tools to essentially assess your non-instructional areas. So in eLumen, we call these contexts. So course equals context, and section in the academic side equals setting in the non-instructional side. So a financial aid workshop that is an event that happens in a specific amount of, on a certain day is a setting of the context of financial aid that just exists at the college. And so you can assign your department coordinators, area coordinators, and then even instructors if you want, that are your tutors but they don't even have to be instructors, they can just be a person, right? So it's the same tools and the same strategic initiatives, but you can personalize your template so that your template for the student services side or non-academic side, I shouldn't say it that way, the co-curricular side, can be the different set of questions and different set of conclusions that you're reacting to. Make sense?
I have a question. So actually when we've been looking at, I'm the librarian and the curriculum chair.
Yeah.
So when we've been looking at these program review templates, I'm seeing the assessments, I'm seeing, how you would put in whatever assessment you had done. But we also include a lot of data on resources and like the state of, like, do we have enough people and stuff like that. And this is also the system that we use to request budget
Yeah.
for things that we need.
Yep.
So I'm just wondering, like, for example, if I'm gathering data to argue for a new streaming video subscription, because for accreditation, as you know, that's something that we have to do if we tie the budgeting process to the program review. What does that part of this look like?
Great question. So going back in to Mariana Padilla, this is the best way. This my demo data shows best for this particular program. So I can look at that in a couple ways. I can go back into strategic initiatives, and you can see here that oh, okay, my user's not letting me see it. So let me go in as another user. Maybe the course coordinator can see it. Don't pay attention to the guy behind the curtain. Okay, so it's absolutely role-based. I just haven't set up those users to be able to see it, but they should be able to, if you want them to, see what I'm about to show you when it comes to resource requests. So eLumen allows resource requests to be set up in one of two ways. You can actually set up what's called action plans, and an action plan can follow right after an assessment where you're saying, hey, you've done your assessment, do you want to ask for resources? Or what is the initiatives that you're going to now take action on now that you've learned some stuff? That's why it's great. School of this size typically doesn't do a separate action planning process because it's more time and typically more work, and you don't necessarily have the personnel for that. So we do an action planning process as part of the program review user interface. And what that looks like is this. So as I come into, again, that same kind of scroll here. There we go. I have the ability to actually go into budgets. And so you can actually come in here ahead of time of a program review for a particular area, right? So here's a whole bunch of budgets that are set up, and I'm not actually encumbering funds from Banner, but I am setting up budgets in eLumen based on the budget for a particular area, just so that they can know as they ask for stuff, they know there's a limit to their budget. And if you're College of the Canyons, they don't care. They want people to ask for the moon, and they'll determine whether they're going to deliver the moon or not. But that's not the way Hartnell worked. I was said, IT was told, you have a finite set of funds, and so any requests you make need to come out of that bucket. So if I choose mathematics as, again, you can see because I'm the data steward, I'm a goddess in the system. I'm Nancy Dodd now. I get to see everything. So if I chose just mathematics, it's going to limit the budgets that I have, and wait, it gets better. I click into one of those budgets, and it shows me how the requests are distributed amongst categories that you decide upon, right? So whether that's people or equipment, and then you get to see the detail of who made the request. You can say, you know what, I just want to see the resource request that came from this year's program review. Or I just want to see all resource requests that result in additional staff. Or I may want to just see minor equipment, right? So then it allows you to scroll through those things that have been approved or that are pending, or you can even reject them because you're in the meeting and you've decided not to fund that. And then you can also at any time go into any of these and see the request details. And it shows you the action that was proposed, what they responded, the action taken, and you can even connect it to SLO data. Okay. There's also another view of this, and that is you can go to priority view, and this would be if you're in you call it the resource allocation committee or college planning council. What do you have here? A rack.
Budget and finances.
So in that meeting, if it's applicable, your faculty or your student services or your library or your whatever, you have people come together at that level and say, what is our priority? And they can come in here and they can move, they can say, you know what, that is our top priority. That's what we want funded more than anything else. And so then when it goes to the next level, that prioritization is what is already set before this discussion even starts. All right? So does that answer your question about funding?
Yeah, it's okay. I mean, I'm still not quite seeing where the person who's making the request is inputting or supporting data.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. So I'm going to do that next. Thanks for bringing me back around. So how do things show up on that list that I was just showing you? I forgot to show you that. Kind of like, this is an awesome car, and I forgot to show you the stereo or the tires. So if I'm responding to a program review, To see this icon that has flags and arrows. So I'm gonna scroll down to one that might actually have some in there. Okay, can't find one. So I'm just gonna click on one of those. So this allows you to set goals, and then what you did last year will come back in this year's program review, and the goals you set in last year's program review, you now have to react to say, hey, I said that if I bought this laptop cart, everyone in the STEM disciplines were going to be ecstatic. I now have to say, were they ecstatic, and how did I determine that? Was it a survey? Was it, visible smiles I took pictures of? How was it I know that they loved what I did? Or besides just clicking on goals, which again, there isn't anyone set for this particular one, but I can also link it to a recommended action. And one of the things that eLumen tries to help you do is close the loop. You hear that all the time when you go to a conference. What does that mean? Well, it means that I could, for the mathematics entity, for the last 37 terms, I could look back to previous program reviews and pull in the recommended actions of those previous program reviews and say, hey, I've asked for this 3 times and I keep on getting ignored, therefore I can't actually do the thing that my department's expected to do. And once you have an action, it'll just drop in here, or you can create a new action. If this is brand new, it's a brand new initiative and you want to start something in this program review. So you can describe the action. These types of actions that you just saw in that drop down are ones you decide upon when you deploy the software. One of these is new resources. And by the way, you can limit if you want to, like if you only allow resource requests in certain years of program review, like the 1st and the 4th, some schools do that, then you can hide resource requests as an option, and they're just saying, here, we're gonna do some stuff. But in this case, you can actually choose new resources, and then you can add a resource request. And you can put in, need pipettes, because who doesn't need more pipettes? And you can say that's gonna cost me about $9 grand. And I can determine which expenditure area I'm gonna pull that from if you choose to make these available. That's gonna come from, it's gonna be a budget request, and I can add additional ones if I want, and then after I'm done, I would then save that, and it would show up on that budget listing that you saw. It would be then considered in that year's budget cycle. That make sense? So is that more clear? So it's a combination of, so I was an IT guy, and I would be, one of the very first things I realized when I got the job is that there was a bunch of archaic, aging servers and technology that pretty much people were just unhappy with. And I realized that if I didn't do something about that, then they would remember that was something I did to them, not the guy before me. And so one of the things that was going to go bad really quickly was the phone system. And it was the problem with it, it was $300,000 to replace the phone system. And this was in 2011. Do you guys remember what it was like in 2011? It was not pretty. And $300,000 was not going to be something I was going to get. So I said, look, if I don't get it, there's a chance this thing's going to go down and then there'll be no phones. I asked a second year, didn't get it. I asked a third year, didn't get it. What happened in the 4th year?
It went down.
The phone system went down. Miraculously, I got $300,000. So wouldn't it be great if you could now escalate your requests because the Learning Resource Center or the Tutoring Center or the Writing Lab was being expected to perform but didn't have any of the tools to do their job. And so this allows you to align 3 things. a resource request with a recommended action from all the faculty or the the co-curricular staff with their, basically their writing in blood, we need this or else. And you can align it to SAO data. What was the performance before and what was the performance after? And that's exactly, forget about accreditation. That's the way you prove that your institution is running effectively. You're using the taxpayer dollars in the most effective way for the greatest benefit of your students. Right? That's why I say we because I still feel like I'm part of the community college system. That's why I worked inside the system, was to try to make a difference in the 9,400 Hartnell students that were on campus. Okay, so that's anything before I lead program review again? Okay. So Mariana Padilla, again, is my mathematics instructor. She's got some curriculum work to do. And I can do that one of two ways. I can click on the inbox and I can go right to this active workflow that it wants me to participate in. I can look at it in outline view, which is just one scrolling sheet of paper, virtual paper, or I can do it in the step view. And let me make it just a little bit smaller so that we're not having to. Okay, so I know it's a little bit more of an eye chart, but I want you to see more of the screen. So a couple really cool things, at least I think they're cool, is that, now, I don't know if any of you outside of the curriculum committee know what a CB code is, but a CB code is the code that you have to fill into the Chancellor's Office Curriculum Inventory System, the COKI system. So for those that care, we can actually append the CB codes so you know which codes are absolutely required before you submit your new course or revision your course or program. We also have the ability to have both top code and SIP code. Why do SIP codes matter in the California Community College system today? Because many of you are getting approval to do four-year programs. And that's not just top code, that's, you have to now also do a SIP code. So we've already got the crosswalk table. If you choose this top code, that equals this SIP code, and we keep that in sync. We also do the same thing with your SAM code. So if you chose mathematics, then it will change this list of whether occupational or non-occupational show up. And of course, if it's a course that's already been approved in the past, you're going to see the control number that gets delivered back to you from the Chancellor's office. In this case, I'm just going to, and what I'm participating in here is that I'm just reviewing, I'm the lucky person in my department that gets to review all curricular changes for math courses. So I'm just reviewing this change, and it's probably going to go on to a dean or area chair, area chair. You can upload files at different parts of our application. And in this case, I'm just going to either save as a draft because a student just walked in my office, or I can hit submit, or I can just keep on going through my different tabs. Everything that's green up there is something that has been added. Everything that's gold is something that has changed. If I wanted to see that dynamically, I just click on this little show last changes. And all I do is hover over, and it will show me what the previous value of that was and the one that was changed to. Now I can also just run the change report, but this is just a way to do it as I'm reviewing. I'm also able to link out to any resources that you've decided to make available to faculty when they're doing curriculum. Right, so this could be the PCA, it could be the CID website, it could be the associated, sorry, the AS, the Academic Senate, Statewide Academic Senate, or frankly, your own guides for them. On top of that, you can also, for any one of these fields, you can actually add helper text. So you see this ellipsis right here? you can hand create any instructions on these fields so that if they're sometimes, they're the ones that trip the faculty up the most, you can help them not get tripped up. Now here is one of the biggies. So PCA 6.0, one of the biggest changes in the PCA 6.0, and if you guys don't know what the PCA is, I slept with PCA on my bedside stand for about the last 3 years, which is really sad. But you kind of need to do that if you want to build a system that's compliant with PCA. And then they changed it to 6.0. And one of the things they changed it to was that these hours have to be displayed, not just here, but they have to be displayed on the COR in a very particular fashion, or the Chancellor's Office will not approve your course. So not only do we make sure that we are separating student hours from lecture, or from the teaching hours, but we automatically calculate your credit hours for you based on the rules of the PCA. And as the rules of the PCA change, we will change our product, which we change on a regular basis. We have 25 programmers at our company. Your current curriculum system, want to guess how many they have? They've got 2. So we have 25, not all working on curriculum, but we've got a lot more than 2 just working on curriculum, and they put out new features every 2 weeks. Now, that may scare you, but we don't make any user interface changes but once every semester. But as you make enhancement requests to say, wouldn't it be great if, that comes to us and our programmers make the change. But in this case, we had to make sure we did a couple things within this environment. We have to make sure that it's calculating correctly the maximum credits, but we also have the ability to manage variable credit, which is something unique to the state of California. You guys have variable credit courses here? Usually your performance. Do you have range of credit? Like this course could be 3 credits, 2 5 credits. That was awesome to try to figure out, by the way. So we handle that range of credits as well. And more importantly, it shows up correctly on your COR and therefore your POR. And guess where else it shows up accurately if you have a range of credit? In an ed planner and in your catalog, because those are things that we deliver with our solution. So no longer are you entering this information in separate systems. If you entered in once, everything else downstream benefits from what you've done in curriculum. All right. So just know that I don't necessarily want to bet my life on it, but I'll bet Lisa's life on it. This is always right. So we also handle prerequisites. And when you choose a prerequisite and the course that is the prerequisite, it will also automatically list for you the objectives or the SLOs that you are making sure you want to be the prerequisite, which again is a Title V requirement. So eLumen knows California. And we have entrance skills, we have limitations on enrollment, we have specifications like assignments, methods of instruction, methods of evaluation, equipment, textbooks, other instructional materials, materials fees, et cetera, et cetera. And if you change an SLO within curriculum here, what did I say earlier would automatically update on the assessment side?
Okay. For our SLO changes, they have to go through curriculum.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't want it to automatically populate the other website until that was approved.
Correct.
Right.
But you're right. So this is going to go through your curriculum process, but as soon as your board has approved the new course, then it will update in the next cycle assessment when you assess that SLO. Whereas right now, you or someone like you has to make sure those two are in sync, right? So I just gave you back 3 weeks of your life. You owe me.
So in other words, this is, when you're creating it, when you're doing something like this, you're basically creating a draft. Somebody ultimately has to, once it's been approved, has to actually hit a button and implement it for it to actually.
No, as soon as, well, yes, but it's something that your AO and your, who's your curriculum specialist? So at some point, you're going to determine that this course is ready to be active, right? So in the last tab here is the curriculum technician tab, and you'll be able to actually change that from an inactive status to an active status. And as soon as you've done that, then yes.
That's what I meant. So the faculty who are working on it can't, somebody else has got to take that action to actually make it active.
Correct.
Until that point, it's all just draft.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and sorry about that. So if I hit submit on this, it's going to tell me that it's going to the area dean next. And so you can, in the back end of this system, have your workflows be a 3-step workflow or a 30-step workflow, however you want. And I won't get into the weeds of it, but I will show you. What's that?
We need the weeds.
Okay. I'm not trying to hide anything, I promise. Just want to make sure I don't put you to sleep. All right, so how does some of that I just showed you come into play? Well, in system settings, again, this is the data steward or the curriculum specialist will have access to this tab. You'll be able to click on the curriculum tab, and this is where you put in the parameters that help do the auto calculation of your credits, right? So there's your term multiplier, and you can even do faculty load parameters if you care to. Not everyone uses that, but it's there if you want to use it. And you're able to come in here and look at your program classification, whether you're going to use both top codes and zip codes or just top codes. You can configure your fields to either be visible, read-only, have helper text. So this is all stuff that you can do that you currently have to call a number in Idaho for someone to do for you today. And that typically takes a few centuries. You can define your own methods of instruction and evaluation so that they are consistent across all of your, whereas right now, anytime we import information from CurricuNet, it's home space work, homework, no space, capital H homework and lowercase homework. We want to make sure we clean all that up when we import into eLumen. And that's how we do it. We have an importer that's ready and willing and waiting for that CurricuNet data. We can also export your data for you. You can export your data for you anytime you want. So that's all of your curriculum information comes at you as a CSV, as an Excel file. You can also define ahead of time all your gen ed patterns, whether that's like Etsy, whether that's CSU breadth, whether that's maybe you've got a special relationship with private institutions or with CSU that is unique to just Barstow. So you can set all those up so that when you are building your program definition, you can define that these courses are leading to this particular transfer pattern. You can define your award types, and then here's your faculty disciplines, top codes, zip codes. So that's that stuff. In workflow, the way this works is that you can just build a CSLO workflow just to change SLOs, but a lot of institutions don't do that, which I would agree with, because you want to change your SLOs in context of a changing course. Just know that eLumen can do both. But if I go into, say, revise a DE course, and you don't have to make it that specific, but for the sake of the demo, if I want to view this particular workflow, the first role that you see there is faculty, and faculty gets to interact and create everything to the right, to your right. And then you define the next phase, which is the department review. And again, you can name these anything you want. In this case, this demo data has the area dean getting it next, and you can even define that it's a specific area dean if you want to have a different workflow, say for math, than you have for English or for nursing or for whatever else. So you can get very, very specific. And then you can also define for any particular data item, can they review it, or can they edit and review it? Or if they edit it, can they send back, right? So if I were just to build one from scratch, It's a new course. It's going to be a create. Then I come in here, I create a stage, and I can name that proposal. And I select the role of faculty, and then you can have as many, you can actually make up as many roles as you want, but faculty is one of those that we get from Banner. And I can choose all of the steps or just some of the steps, and then I can add them. And in this case, it's just smart enough to know the first step is that the faculty is going to create all of this content in a create a course workflow, right? And then the next stage, I can do a couple things. I can have multiple roles, or I can have one role, and then I can choose all of the steps, or maybe I want the dean to only review the cover info. And then the next role gets to do everything else. Maybe that's the, I don't know, the librarian. And then you can see that for all of these, I can determine, do they get to just review or do they get to edit? And if they get to edit, do they also get to approve? Right, so you can see it's incredibly specific, role-based, content-based, what someone can and can't do in your workflow definition. So I promise you, whatever your workflows are, 99% of them we can match. And again, you can make, if you want to create a two-step workflow for the specialist because you just need to whip through some approvals sometimes and you just want to take over, you can build that workflow. Or you can say every workflow, no matter who it is going to take 8 steps. Besides defining the workflow, you can also define step templates. So one of the mistakes of your existing curriculum system is that the company was trying to do the right thing and continues to try to do the right thing, but they customize every single school differently, which now has provided a burden of support that they can no longer support, which is why many of you are unhappy. I was unhappy. So eLumen doesn't like to customize for a school. If you have a really good idea that needs to be added to our system, we will build it and everyone will get it. But there are some things that you feel really passionate about. Like, does this course, I can't think of an example. Let's say that you want the word peanut butter in the course definition as a term. I don't want to build something for all customers that have peanut butter as a term, but you may feel very passionate about this, and therefore you can actually create what are called step templates. So remember in the workflow, there were steps that I was clicking on, whether it was methods of instruction or credit hours, or each one of those was a step in the step in the stage of approval for a particular user. So you can have many additional steps as you want with custom fields forever. So that's the way we have you build your DE addendum. That's how we build you do your program narrative. That's how you build your CTE addendum. Is you build a custom step template with your questions required for distance education. And then you append that step either to a special DE workflow or to all workflows. It just, sometimes you fill it out, sometimes you don't. So you can do it any way you want. But essentially what I'm saying is you can build any custom field that you want and add it to eLumen without contacting us. You just add a new step template. Is that clear? Okay. So besides being able to do workflow and define curriculum definitions, when you're all done importing your information into the system, then you have a couple things that are important. One is that you can at any time, so right now, let's say Mariana this is Nancy Dobb, but let's say she was the math instructor, she would only be able to create courses or revise courses in mathematics. But it doesn't mean that she shouldn't be able to see any course in the system, right? So I'm going to come in as Kay Marshall to show you a couple stuff. She's a computer science instructor. We're almost there. So, as she comes into curriculum, she again sees her existing curriculum revisions and she can take action like view the COR. You guys just dying to see what that looks like, right? So this is what an eLumen COR looks like. Trust me, it has everything in there that you guys need. There are about 25 of our 50 schools that are already up and running on curriculum, and another 10 right behind them. So trust me, you guys may have unique needs, I'm not saying that, but if we're not doing something that leads to compliance, we would have heard about it at this point, right? College of the Canyons would not have let us get away with forgetting something. I would have no hair left if that had been the case. Same thing with West Valley, with Mission, with Cerritos, with Fresno City, with Bakersfield. All of them are running curriculum in eLumen. So besides being able to see this, and I can print that report or save it as a PDF, I can also go into courses and programs, and I can just type in, let's say I want to see the philosophy courses. All I have to do is start typing it, and it immediately finds all the courses below. And I can click on it and show the history of how many times that course was approved. And in the archives, I can keep all of the past CORs. On top of that, I can see the COR, or if I want to compare them side by side, because I may want to take one of these and make it a prerequisite to my course or a cross-listed course, I can compare them side by side, and it shows me all of those philosophy courses in one view. And if you do more than 3, it exports it out as a CSV or, sorry, an Excel spreadsheet. You can see up to as many courses as you want to compare. Okay, so I can also merge courses as cross-listed, but until I get to see my own courses, do I have the ability to actually create a new revision, right? Or if I don't want to create a new revision of something, I click on new course, I'm a computer science teacher, it's going to create a computer science course, even though I've been looking at philosophy courses, right? So it's smart enough to know what you would want faculty to be able to do. If I come in here as, or I want to show you what program looks like. So in here I've got active course revisions, and I also might be processing a program. What does program look like? So if I'm going to go and do a new revision of a program, again, these choices are popping up because of something I've configured someplace else. So if you want to have a specific CTE program revision, it's because you've decided to make it so, or you can just have everything be generic. And here we've already built into the system the ability to create a rules-based system or a pathways system. So if you want to create meta majors or have wider paths to completing a program, we have a special workflow just to help you build that.
Is this gonna align with guided pathways?
Absolutely. Yep. So one of the things, I can't get into too much of the details, but Bakersfield has received a special grant or assignment to work with Concentric Sky, who's been hired by the foundation and Von Tonkin Livin to create a program visual mapper. They're using eLumen data to feed that mapper because there is no other system in the state of California that has all the course, all the program, and all the performance data in one system. So they either have a choice, hand enter it all, or just import it from eLumen. And I'm glad they chose the latter. So yes, we're trying very much so to, what people are starting to refer to eLumen as the enabler for guided pathways. we still have a ways to go, and with your input and others, we will absolutely build what we need to support you in the future. We don't know what we don't know at this point, but we are a system that already supports the 4 pillars.
So now I have another question for you with that. You just shared that whatever you do in eLumen, because you do not specialize for colleges as PreConnect does, that whatever you do, it's for everybody and everybody gets access to it, which is great. However, Guided Pathways is based off what's good for this college versus what's good for this college versus what's good for this college. So how, and I know I'm probably way off out in the weeds, but how is that going to then, so what you build for Bakersfield will then automatically be accessible for everybody, and we go with that?
Yeah, so what do I mean by that?
Okay, yeah.
It means that your meta major for, say, biology or a STEM program may be completely different than Bakersfield. Bakersfield's gonna be completely different than Long Beach. But being able to define a meta major should be universal.
Okay.
So we're not going to, and the ability to feed a program mapper so that both faculty can see what a path through a program looks like, but just as importantly, we want to build that for a student. Where am I at in this map? What do I accomplish? What do I have left to accomplish? That should be universal across all schools. That makes sense? So besides, natural stuff like rationale for start or when you want it to start, is this a new program? Is it a revision? As I go through these steps, you have the ability to actually have outcomes in this program as well, because that's just where your PSLOs come from, right? But here's where you can start to define your course blocks and your course block groups. And more importantly, you get to define rules. So as you as faculty design what your program should and should not be, and specifically that you must take 12 credits of this and 9 credits of this, and you can't take this at the same time you take this, but you need to make sure you take this first and these 2 after. All of those rules take a lot of time to think through, right? Why would you want to now re-enter those into your ed plan when they can just feed right from eLumen, right? Now, I realize you guys are a Hobson's client, and we would hope to support you in that, but eLumen also has its own ed planner, and it will be infinitely easier to use, so you can talk to us in 5 years when you get tired of dealing with Hobson's. But hopefully, again, that's successful.
So does this treat all programs equally? Point being, CTE programs have some additional.
No, yeah, absolutely. So you have the commission report, you have, again, special narrative questions, you have, you may actually have a different approval process that is external to the institution, right? Because it has to go to the commission and come back. Yeah, so absolutely we understand that, and this supports that. If you want to go to a person outside of eLumen, that person's email address and user has to be in the system, however. Otherwise, how does it know who to send it to? But the thing that I really want you to get a taste of here is, this is something that CurricuNet never got right. They tried and tried. Meta, which is the next version of CurricuNet, still doesn't get this right. This process was a bear to get right, because these rules on the right-hand side feed a catalog. eLumen isn't just a curriculum system, you get a catalog system rolled in at the same time. So it feeds all of the language, the vernacular that is readable by a student and a counselor of what a program means, right? Prerequisites, prerequisites. We even have a term that you have not used much in this state called an anti-requisite. People go, what in the heck? For guided pathways and for 4-year programs, it is a mainstay. So the fact that we already have it is preparing you for where you're heading. And all that means is that it's a course that has the same SLOs and the same objectives and the same competencies and you shouldn't take them both at the same time, so you can define them as anti-requisites. It sounds like something bad, but it's actually good. All right, and then we have this thing, this neat little thing, which not all schools frankly use in their existing systems, but it is something that the Chancellor's Office would love to see you start to do more, is that you can define your recommended sequence. And if you define your recommended sequence, not every student's going to follow this, right? Because some can only take 4 credits or 9 credits, or they want to take 18 credits or 22. But if you have, say, 12 credit terms laid out for 6 semesters, what does this automatically create for your counselors without them having to lift a finger? That's guided pathways. Yeah, and it's a preliminary ed plan. Now, we don't want that to be the ed plan because they still need to meet with a counselor and create a comprehensive ed plan and then sync it in the system as this is the authorized ed plan that we now have a contract between the institution and the student. But the busy work is now gone. It just automatically feeds for every student coming in the front door. Here is your preliminary ed plan, and you didn't have to do a thing except for the thing you're already doing in curriculum. That make sense? So this is the kind of stuff that eLumen is trying to make your job easier without necessarily taking shortcuts. We're just trying to eliminate work that shouldn't be in there in the first place. All right. Last but not least, as you get done with all of this, you know, as you approve your programs and approve your courses, not only is that information inside of eLumen for anyone to go and search and look at the PORs and look at the other things, there are tools that you as administrators need to have that make your job easier. So let me show you a few of those. So I'm coming in now as a specialist or curriculum technician. And I get a couple things. So I can be a curriculum chair, I can be an area dean, I can be a board member, I can be anything in eLumen that you want to make me. It's kind of like Lisa's jobs, right? She gets to be everything. But once I make her a specialist, special dispensations happen. She gets a special curriculum development dashboard. Now you can give the specialist, now again, this would be you. You can give this role to anyone else so you don't have to do all this work yourself. But if you want it all to yourself, you know, go for it. You might want to, who's your AO? Oh, there you are. Okay. So most likely the articulation officer is going to have some sub-roles, some role capabilities of the curriculum specialist, or she can give it all to you. But you're able to come in here and you're able to do a couple of really cool things. You can download all the existing curriculum revisions happening at the current time. You can just download it as a CSV right here. So you can then evaluate and see what's coming up and how many are overdue and all that stuff. You can also start building chair reports. So I'm assuming right now that CurricuNet is up and running in every curriculum meeting, right? It was at Hartnell. So you would come in and you would actually make changes in CurricuNet as you were discussing a course or a program. Well, in the same way, eLumen aspires to be open during your curriculum meetings, but we allow you to come in here and create reports, and then on any one of those reports, you can fill the courses and the programs and the discontinuances, or what's it called? Archiving. You can fill those all in ahead of time. We're not going to manage your Robert's Rules of Order of how you run your meeting, but you can have already set a full semester in advance the courses that you're going to discuss and fill out those reports for the every other Tuesday meeting. And then that way people can say, when is my program or is my course going to be discussed? Well, they can look at the chair reports and see when it's on the docket. Besides that, you can come in here and you can do the same thing for your board report. Who gets to build the board report? How much does that take you?
Depends on how many courses are actually
More than 10 minutes, right? So this is actually being improved right now so that you're not just choosing terms, but you're using actual dates. So just know that by the time you're live, if you chose this as a solution, you would be able to say from January 1st to February 15th. In this case, I'm just going to go say from fall 2017 to where's my winter or spring? There we go, spring 2018. Hit generate report. Done. Board report is done. So it has a listing of all your new credit courses, all your new non-credit, your course revisions, your distance education, and your programs if there were any. And then every one of these hot links will take you right down to the details of that course and the changes that were made in it. So that's just, again, one thing we're trying to do to help make your life easier. And I'm sure you're going to have suggestions on what you want it to be different. And we're happy to take those suggestions and make it possible for everyone else. Besides the board report, you also have a curricular change report. Again, you're going to choose your range of terms that you're going to run the change for. Generate the report, and it's going to automatically generate a CSV, download it to your computer, and as you open that up, it shows you every course, what it was, and what it was changed to for that time period. All right, is that useful? Okay. Okay. One or two more things and I'm done. You can on any one, you can see right up in that corner right here, it says 951 days. I don't know why we chose days. We probably should use weeks, but it tells you how many days are left before this course needs to be reviewed again and when it's overdue. So it will help tell you when CTE courses or other courses should be on the next chair report, right? On top of that, you can.
So I have a question there.
Yeah.
Will that automatically then generate out to the faculty and the discipline?
When you run the report, no. So,
No, what I mean is.
when it's overdue?
Yeah, before it's overdue.
So,
like, will it automatically generate something out to the faculty in those disciplines saying in 300 days, this report needs to be reviewed, or this course needs to be reviewed by curriculum or whatever? Will it automatically do that?
if you say yes to buying this product, the answer is yes. I'm just kidding.
Well, you got my vote, so I don't have the power, but you got my vote.
So today the answer is no, because feedback from all the schools thus far has basically said, don't spam us as faculty. We can come and we can see what's there. But I'm with you. I want to be reminded of certain things. I want to be reminded when my textbook is over 5 years old. I want to be reminded when my course is about overdue. I want to be reminded when I'm going to show you the impact report, and you guys, you've never been able to trust your impact report that you have now, right?
So then go back to another. So can we have the option to say, yes, this is what our college would like, and the other colleges can say, no, they chose not to have it?
Yes, in June.
Okay.
So it's not there yet, but because I feel pretty strongly about it, it's coming. And that's not just me promising you, it's going to happen.
So one of the major issues that we have is that faculty really struggle in curriculum with calling up their courses and knowing what stage their course is at. So I'll have people saying, well, my course was approved by curriculum a year ago, I thought, but it never got implemented. What happened? So it looks like on the screen that you showed that was actually fairly easy for faculty to look at, much easier, I think.
Yeah, that dashboard lets them know what courses are currently being revised and what stage they're in.
Right, so I saw that stuff. But my other question has to do with, yes, this person not spamming them. Another problem that we have had is that someone, let's say, for example, a coordinator, sends something back for changes. No email is generated so the faculty member does not have any way of knowing until I, as the curriculum chair, go through every single level and then email them.
Right.
So does this have a way of automatically letting people know stuff like that, or?
Yes, so it will, anytime, if there is a notification in that inbox, and that notification comes when they're asked to review or asked to participate in a workflow, they're gonna get an email in their campus mail that will bring them into eLumen. Beyond that, I have to build additional notifications in, and then you'll be able to turn them on or off based on your level of spam tolerance. But it will be all or nothing, right? It can't just be this faculty member wants it all and this one wants none. It's everyone gets notified of this thing. All right, I know we're at 5. Just want to show you one real quick thing, which is that impact report. So I'm clicking on show only active workflows, which will then allow me to go in and show you the change report specifically for this course, right? Before I was doing a change report for all actions. This is just the change report for a particular course. Remember I said you could hover over and it would show you it field by field. That can get annoying. So this allows you to build a change report for a course, what it was before, it's now in front of you, right? So that's really helpful to faculty members or those doing reviews. And then, to me, my favorite report is the impact report. And a report that we're working on right now is the prerequisite report, even though you could get that off the change report. So prerequisite report for your AO, that's gonna save you a couple weeks. So here is the impact report that shows you the impacts for Comp Sci 104. So courses that use this as a requisite, courses that are requisites, and program impacts. And this would be another thing that would be notified that if I'm changing a course that's going to affect all of these 12 programs, I need to notify someone who owns that program so they know that they could be potentially impacted. That's going to come up in a curriculum meeting, but owners of those programs should be notified. All right, so public view of all of this. Is as simple as just putting public at the end of your eLumen URL. Oh, that didn't work. See, I hate it when that happens. Let me go to a site like Mendocino.
Happens to me all the time.
Especially when you're in front of a crowd like this, right? Trying to impress them. Okay, cross your fingers for me. Yay, okay. So by virtue of you just approving and doing what you do normally as faculty, you'll be able to come in here in any one of your programs, your departments, you'll be able to list all the courses. And every one of those courses, you'll be able to see all the details of the course and you'll be able to actually view the COR. So you don't have to do anything to maintain that anywhere on your website. It just happens. All right? And then the same thing happens for catalog. The only difference between what you're seeing here in the catalog is the catalog lets you build the screen for the president's message and for the accreditation report and for the, this 15 pages of Title III and Title V student services. But it will automatically feed in all the changes to course and program will be searchable. And it will, in the future, in the very near future, will include workforce data. So if I'm trying to figure out whether I want to go into ag science, not only will it show me the COR, at the bottom of this, it will show me number of jobs that are available, average income for the careers in this area, and how many jobs are available in a geographic area from where I'm standing right now.
So, we don't actually do a print catalog at the moment, but just out of curiosity, is that generating a printable version of the catalog?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what it is and what it isn't. It will only make course and program data searchable. So I'm not going to be able to say, show me all the times in this catalog that the word frog appears. It's only going to say, I want to search all the courses that are English. So that's the limit to its searchability. But it's intended to be an online catalog with the ability to generate a printable PDF. Yep, and we also are going to give you an exportable version if you want to throw it into Adobe InDesign, just because you have 5 weeks to kill. All right. If you want to create if you want to control every Laura Ipsum detail, we give you the source file to build that catalog, but we think you've got better things to do. And what we have created for you is an attractive, searchable, and frankly linked to a ed plan. So this is what's going to be possible by the end of spring term, is that when students are searching in the catalog, they can actually earmark the items in the catalog that make part of their ed plan. So the catalog isn't just a catalog, it's a way for them to get ready for meeting with the counselor or getting ready for registration. So we're blending the notion or the idea that we've had for centuries as higher ed, that there's a schedule of classes, there's a catalog, and there's this thing called curriculum that happens in dark, smoky rooms. We want to make sure that it's all visible, that it's all feeding into it so that, frankly, you guys can have a life. All right, so I think that's it. I think you guys probably have heard enough, right? Any questions before I hop back on I-15?
You said that the student education plan would be automatically created. Would it allow for updates based on what's in there?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, well, so here's, it's a great question, but it actually identifies a wrong way of thinking, if I could be so bold. Right now, with your ed plan, in order for an ed plan to work, you have to first evolve your curriculum, right? Which is happening on a regular basis. I'm guessing, but there's probably 200 to 300 changes per semester of curriculum changes. And that's probably being conservative. So fall term, there were 200 changes, and in spring term, there's gonna be 200 changes, and there's typically not any changes in spring and summer, but that's 400 changes that someone has to make in Banner, right? In order for those, well, once they're approved, for them to now make any difference to registration. So I'm proposing that there's a better way to do this, and that is, as you evolve curriculum, it's going to automatically update your ed plan, so you don't have to enter them into Banner to then feed your ed planner and enter those rules in at the minimum of twice, if not 3 times. And once they are in our ed planner or in our catalog or in our curriculum system, we can output that curriculum in a file in a way that it can be automatically imported into Banner as PL/SQL code. And Banner is automatically updated. So data governance is a much more doable thing. And it doesn't take the faculty out of the process. It doesn't take the counselors who are faculty out of the process. It keeps the data more clean. Problem with scribing or doing the updates that you're going to be doing in Hobson's over the next few years is that it's going to be someone's job to do that every single semester, or your Hobson system will not be trusted and people will stop going to it as a source. And I propose that somewhere down the line, you just stop doing that and you use an ed planner that's automatically fed by your curriculum system. In the meantime, we're happy to give you an output that you can feed into Hobson's. Again, saving you time. That makes sense? We are for those that are the more technical side, we are an Ethos partner, eLumen. So we are an alliance partner that integrates with both Colleague and Banner. We support all of the APIs you would expect us to support, and we have the ability to consume data from Banner very easily through a cron job, or in the future, there'll be an API specifically. Once the Ethos project evolves, we'll have the API to do this based on direct changes in the system. Okay, that's the end of my geek speak. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it.